Well, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden still thinks he would have won. You see, Biden regrets leaving presidential race, thinks he could have beaten Trump. That's according to a report. Biden is totally delusional, but I do think it is very obvious that Biden, with how old he is, was probably pretty happy that Kamala Harris lost, and he can go around saying this. And I know after Harris lost, there were a lot of liberals that were thinking, well, maybe we just should have stuck with the incumbent. But you could argue, would it be better? Would it be worse with Biden? There were the internal numbers that said Biden was going to lose, Trump potentially getting around 350 electoral votes. That would be potentially Virginia, possibly New Jersey as well. To me, I think there were a number of things at play when it comes to where Biden was back in late June, right after that debate, and into July when his funding dried up and they were trying to really force him out. He can go out there and he can say this because it's a what about? It's a hypothetical. It's maybe because of how bad Kamala lost, losing every single swing state and also losing the popular vote. But very likely Biden probably would have lost by more, even if the party would have gotten behind Biden because of how old he was. Now, I will say, when it comes to that debate in specific, if you look at that debate versus Biden on that Monday night during the DNC, he did sound a lot better during the DNC. That debate was just so horrible. But when it comes to Biden overall, he was just too old. I mean, I feel like his legacy is he was so old. He got the job 10 years later than when he would have been competent to actually do it. And you can see Biden privately regrets dropping out of this year's presidential election, reportedly insists he could have beaten Trump if he wasn't pushed out of the race by his own party. Aides say the president has been careful to not place blame on Harris or her campaign. However, the president all but admitted during a CBS interview in August that Nancy Pelosi led the charge because Dems in the House and the Senate were worried that he dragged down their chances of being reelected. And that was another thing at play. It was the down ballot issue when it came to Biden and just how historically bad of a candidate he would have been in a second potential term, or if he would have ran again. So to me, this doesn't surprise me. Biden is totally delusional at this point. I do also want to look at this clip from Scott Jennings and CNN talking about the legacy of Biden. You can see Jennings dismantles Biden's legacy. This is what they do with CNN. It's the back and forth, yada, yada, yada. And there's some lady that's on there trying to pick up the pieces and say, oh, Biden's going to be remembered. It's someone who helped the tensions in the Middle East, and they're still trying to spin that narrative with Afghanistan. Afghanistan was a total disaster. I think every liberal should admit it. That's when Biden lost the trust of independent people within the United States. When you look at his approval rating, it was not the fact that the United States left. We all understand, and we've been over this 500 times. It doesn't matter anymore. Biden got it. They took Biden out of the race, and Harris ends up losing to Trump, but Trump did want to leave Afghanistan. That was a bipartisan thing, but it was the way he left Afghanistan. He should have left troops behind. That is a common thing. And if you look at the internal reports, it was like half of his generals wanted to leave troops behind, but he didn't do it. He just wanted to get everyone out. And it ended up being a major issue. But honestly, a lot of this is anecdotal. It really doesn't matter, because do we really think Biden was making the ultimate decision on when to leave Afghanistan? Honestly, with how bad the withdrawal was, maybe we can say that's the one decision he did make, because most of it is not going to be coming from Biden. If you are a Democrat and you see how slow Biden is this late into his life, that's just, to me, people remembering Biden, that's going to be the number one thing. One term, he has a terrible debate. Trump ends up, winning the popular vote. The Democratic Party right now is a total mess with him leaving office. He's out there vacationing every day. I mean, if you go back and you look when Biden dropped out, because they were still trying to run this whole thing. It was like Biden and his administration against everyone else within the Democratic Party, because they still wanted Biden to run. Biden's internal family wanted him to run. It was like this infighting, and Biden would go out and do these interviews and stuff, and he was still trying to show that he could be a leader, and he was facing a ton of heat, and that's why he kept trying to do these interviews, these one-on-one sit-downs with Lester Holt and CNN and whatever. But the second he dropped out, they forced him out. He puts out the statement. He's vacationing for 6-7 days, and he's just constantly vacationing. They said 40% of his days have been vacationing, and at this point he's a lame duck, and he just has no say over anything. I wonder if he's even getting briefings at this point. You'd have to, the people giving him the briefing or giving him the email or whatever, it's got to be just so meaningless and such a waste of time for Biden, because he is not controlling, I would say, a single thing at this point when it comes to that administration. With a combination of him being forced out, the Democratic Party losing in the way they did, being broken with Trump winning the popular vote, and just the fact that he's so unpopular within their party. And now you've even got people I saw within MSNBC and CNN coming out and saying that he's got a bad legacy and that he was selfish for wanting to run in 2020. And then obviously, more recently, you take a look at the situation with the pardons. It's not surprising he pardoned Hunter Biden. The problem was the blatant lying the Democrats did, trying to appeal to Americans, saying that Trump wants to put himself above the law and that Joe Biden wouldn't do that because he wouldn't pardon Hunter. He has morals and standards, and it's just a total lie. If he lost, this was always the plan. He was just going to pardon him and say, I don't really care what I said earlier. We were fighting for, this idea of being more moral and being more, having more trust in the United States justice system. And it just didn't matter because at the end of the day, he was always going to pardon Hunter if he lost. If he won, it would have been Kamala pardoning Hunter. Or I guess if Kamala would have won, it would have been her pardoning Hunter. But let's listen to this.
That he's accomplished, I think will stand the test of time. Now, what my dear friend Scott and others will talk about, and quite frankly, I'm going to say this, on it, rightfully so, it was very disturbing to learn late in the year about just how how poor his health has become. And like many, I did not realize that it had gotten to that point. That being said, I think he showed up for the job. He got the work done. I think some of the accomplishments also in the Middle East and foreign policy will also stand the test of time.
You think the Middle East is in better shape today than when he took office?
Well, I think he got our hostages home. I think that's a big deal. I think it's important.
I'm sorry, which hostages?
He's gotten a number of people home. He was able.
There's still 100 people over there.
Well, there were more than
including some Americans. Look, I think he's gonna leave office in disgrace. The Hunter Biden pardon was disgraceful. He's going to be remembered largely for inflation and for the disastrous Afghanistan pullout.
I think he's going to be remembered for being not mentally capable, honestly. I think that's what most Americans are going to take away. One term forced out by his own party because of a terrible debate because he couldn't talk. I think the big takeaway is just in 2020, the situation with Trump, the pandemic, the worst timing possible, helped to get Biden elected. The hysteria against Trump, the media manipulation, the silencing of the laptop story. And again, you're a one-term president. Your legacy is not going to be very good. It's just not. In general, you even wait, 20, 30 years down the line as we get less emotional and as Republicans don't really care about Biden anymore. There's still going to be, it's just Biden was just not capable for the job. He just wasn't.
And I think as we continue to, we're just getting the first draft of this now, but as we continue to learn about the massive cover-up that went on, not about his health, but about his mental acuity, to cover that up, the efforts that were undertaken by the White House staff, by his family, not in the last couple of months, but for all 4 years.
Well, he's absolutely right on that because they tried swinging it. They said, well, his health deteriorated over time. But you've got aides admitting privately that no, Biden, and this goes back to 2021, they tried bragging about that massive infrastructure deal. And Nancy Pelosi had to tell Biden, you need to leave the room because he was so incompetent. They're like, we're trying to negotiate this deal. You're so bad. This was Biden's first 5 months, first year in office. Remember the Hur tapes? Robert Hur's like, I can't charge him. He's so mentally incompetent. I feel bad. He's so old. He should be in an old folks home. That's what that's basically what he said. So that's how bad it was. That's why Biden was never going to win. And Democrats knew that. They saw the writing on the wall. I think the major problem most Democrats have is the fact that Biden immediately endorsed terrorists. Now, it's just speculation. We don't really know, but it does seem like Obama and the powers within the Democratic Party wanted an open DNC. They liked the power, and it wasn't going to be Kamala. You look at Kamala and her approval rating. It was inexplicably bad for being a VP. It was worse than Biden. Biden was minus 13. Harris was minus 15. They did the fake media. Oh, now she's likable, and brought her up to a +2 approval rating based off of nothing, out of thin air, out of just media hype. And to me, I think if you're a Democratic strategist, there's no way you wanted Kamala Harris to be your nominee. But once Biden endorsed her, you were forced to because he was the president at the time and he had that power to do that, to where if he endorses her, the whole party has to rally behind her. Remember, that was when Obama took 5 days and then endorsed her at 5 a.m. and they acted like it was normal. But you could tell he was pissed off. They were angry. They didn't want that. And that's just basically the reality.
I think it's going to be a really ugly chapter. It's a diminished presidency because of it. And I think we still don't know the full extent of what they did to try to hide what they've been doing over in the West Wing.
So I think leaving in disgrace is when you have an insurrection at the Capitol. Like, that's leaving in disgrace.
But Trump's not leaving. He's back. Wait. So the insurrection was so terrible. You're right. He left in disgrace. He only came back and won the popular vote in every swing state. You're right. It was so horrible. You're so correct. What if Jennings just said that?
Impeached twice is leaving in disgrace. So that's
impeached by the Democrats because they're childs. I mean, couldn't Republicans have impeached Biden 50 times? There's just no point. It's a waste of time. It's a charade. They're the children that waste time and money on impeachments that are never going to go through and never happen. Biden is just not capable. Biden could have been impeached 100 times.
That's a difference. I think Joe Biden's going to be remembered in the short term for what you were talking about, whether or not he had the capacity to lead, who knew what when. I mean, there are many people outside of the very small network of Anita Dunn and Valerie Biden Owens and Jill Biden and Hunter. There aren't many people who knew the concerns that were there or whether or not he was up or fit for the job. And so those questions.
It's already been reported his aides knew. This is widespread stuff. This stuff like, oh, wait, nobody knows. The aides are like the guys that he's just not capable. I mean, anyone watching a Biden interview could have said that he wasn't capable.
Questions will be asked. Over the long term, this is somebody a lot like Mitch McConnell. You don't necessarily have to agree with everything they stood for. You don't have to agree.
Well, Mitch McConnell is hated by a lot of Republicans and pretty much all Democrats. So I thought he was going to go in a different spot than that. That's not very good for Biden if that's what a Democrat is saying about him in terms of that. But that's just the situation regarding Biden, where we're at with him. He is very delusional. I'm sure deep down he's happy. And I said before the election happened, he would be happy if Kamala lost. And you had that kind of moment where he put on the Trump hat and people thought he was voting for Trump, kind of just a funny troll thing, whatever. Republicans were doing it. But the general sense is that it's just not a good administration. And the long-lasting effect is going to be Biden was not mentally capable. And he ran against Trump during a time where there was a crazy pandemic and it significantly helped Biden and the media was on his side and Biden didn't have to campaign at all. And he had a perfect excuse. I mean, that's a historic, crazy thing during a campaign. That pandemic comes in March. The campaign is basically starting. The presidential campaign is starting like 3 months later. So it was the worst possible timing for Trump. And we saw, imagine the rallies this year for Biden, how bad they were. I mean, with Harris, they were bad, but at least she had more energy than Biden would have. So he was very helped by that pandemic. And so, guys, that's just my opinion on this situation. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.